Good evening, everyone, and a warm, warm welcome to the Hearth Within. We are very proud and honored to be launching a very significant book this evening. And this is a translation of well known award winning writer Jatin Bala's autobiography, the first part of his autobiography. In Bengali, it is titled Shikor Chhera Jibon, and it has been translated from the original Bangla into English as A Life Uprooted. A Bengali Dalit Refugee Remembers. We are very happy to have, of course, the translators here, Mandakini and Jaydeep Sarangi. And we are also very, very grateful to have an esteemed panel to be talking about and to be discussing this very significant book. Uh, Jatin Bala is known for his writing. For a long period of time, he has been writing, and his discourse is essentially located in that doubly marginalized position that stems from being a Dalit as well as a refugee. So his is a story, his is a narrative that requires attention, that requires reading, and that requires wide discussion and dissemination within the fraternity of scholars and creative writers that we hope to have with us here today, and that we hope will in the future be listening to this entire session, which is being recorded. And we are very grateful to have the inaugural to be done by someone very special, very close to our hearts. And P. Sivakami ma'am is here. And she is, of course, she needs no introduction. As an IS officer, as the first Tamil Dalit woman novelist, she is widely known, and we are very grateful to receive her presence, her blessings, and her precious warmth for the book. So, without further ado, I would request P. Sivakami ma'am to kindly talk to us, to talk to this wonderful audience here, and to, of course, inaugurate this session. So, ma'am, it's over to you.
Friends, I'm extremely pleased to be part of this book launch today. I congratulate Jatin Bala for his iconic book, namely Life Uprooted, a Bengali Dalit Refugee Remembers. I haven't had an opportunity to go through the book. However, when Jaydeep Sarangi called me to give an inaugural address for the book launch session, I readily agreed because probably I have to extend my support from here, to any Dalit writer who's, maybe his, I don't know, first book, Dalit autobiography, I think. Earlier from Bengali, I have had an opportunity to go through Andar Bill by Kalyani Thakur, and this was published by Zuban, by Urvashi Butalia. And I think I'm hearing, a second book from Bengali. Please correct me if I am wrong, from Bengali to English. And I congratulate the translator Mandakini Bhattacherya and the famous publication, The Hearth Within. I think Basundara Rai is involved with the publication, I think. So I thank the publication as well as the translator. I think Jatin Bala also had co-translated the book, I think, because it is written by Mandakini as well as the author. Or Jayendra Sarangi, sorry, Jaydeep Sarangi, not Jatin Bala. Next to, I think, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu is a pioneer as far as Dalit literature is concerned. It's more known for creative literature like fiction, short stories, novels, than autobiographies. Of course, Bama's autobiography is there. There is one more person, K.A. Gunasekaran, had written a autobiography that's been translated into English. It's called The Scar. There are more than now, because we started writing in the 80s. Now we have more than 100 writers. And I edit a magazine for the subaltern. It's called Pudiya Kodangi magazine. It means an instrument to drive away the evil spirit. That's the name of an instrument. It's called Kodangi. So with that, I think a lot of Dalit writers had an opportunity to contribute articles and short stories. And now I think uh, uh, 10 years from now, even in Bengali, I think the number would increase. I would like to, my books actually, Dalit writing has been widely recognized, supported by fair minded people, both in India and abroad. So my book was kept as, in the syllabus for postgraduate students for under translation studies in Toronto Public means English Department, as well as Santi Niketan for some time. And currently it is in Delhi University. And of course, it's not easy to reach, to the readers through English, because it took nearly 20 years for my first novel to be translated and published. And there were no persons coming forward to translate my book. So I was forced to translate myself. I'm sure, I think Jatin Bala and people like him didn't have the difficulty, to get it translated, probably immediately or after a few years, because it is not, it didn't take them 20 years, I suppose. And I have just 2 points to mention. Dalit like literature is like a cleansing agent. It acts as a cleansing agent to bring about social change in our country. It is a narrative on the lives of both the victims as well as the uh, uh, perpetrators of caste. Perpetrators of caste. These days, some people, criticize that this Dalit writers continue to write about discrimination and atrocities, and this is creating animosities between communities. But I would like to quote poet Bharti, Subramania Bharti. You must have heard about him. And he says, even if one person goes hungry in this country, it is worth that the entire world is destroyed. So I would like to say, as long as untouchability or discrimination exists, Dalit literature will have to survive and has to be supported. Secondly, Dalit literature primarily intends to change the Dalits rather than others. Um, it's implied in a society, if the some sex, because our society is interdependent, because communities are interdependent. It is not that one can live exclusively of others. In such situations, if Dalits uh, they change, it has an automatic kind of a repercussions among other communities. They have to face the changed Dalits, so they will also be changing. So in that way, Dalit literature is very relevant and it has to be encouraged. And because of our efforts, it's not become automatic, because right from the day one, we have been fighting with Sahitya Akademi. I remember I was mentioning in one of the seminars to Sachidanandan, the secretary of Sahitya Akademi then, that you are organizing workshop for women writers, but why don't you recognize this genre as Dalit literature and encourage Dalit writers, conduct workshop for them, conduct seminars for them, give them some fellowships so that they can, improve their skills. So as a result, now I feel, adequate recognition Sahitya Academy also is giving to Dalit writers. And any literary festival, a panel is there for Dalit writings as such. I think with this words, I would like to thank the organizers for giving an opportunity to me to speak on this occasion. Thank you, everyone, and all the best to Jatin Bala and the publishers. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sivakami
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
And
much.
as you said, truly the Sahitya Akademi has been supporting Dalit writing. And this book, incidentally, happens to be a Sahitya Akademi publication. It has been
Oh,
published by the Sahitya Akademi. And
Wow.
we are also very privileged to have Jatin Bala with us. He is here, but he is unfortunately not well. And all of us really hope that he revives soon and he can join all of us at some offline launch in the very near future. And also, Sivakami ma'am, yes, your first novel written in 1989 and translated in 2006, that was one long journey. And I think that many writers, women writers, Tamil, Dalit feminist writers, and I think writers in general would learn a lot from what you have given us. So thank you very much. We believe that this is a very important branch of writing, and as you say, it acts as a cleansing agent in society. So thank you very much for being with us and for your wonderful words for the book. And from Sivakami ma'am, we would begin the discussion on the book today with Professor M.B. Gaijan. So, sir, who is joining us from Bhavnagar, Gujarat, I would request him to kindly unmute and to talk to us about his opinions on the book. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jaydeep ji, Bhattacharya ji, and all the organizers, and also giving me opportunity to express my thoughts on the Dalit autobiography from the first Dalit autobiography, refugee Dalit autobiography from West Bengal. See, as Jaydeep ji has given me invitation, I have without any agitation accepted. Because I would like to talk, I would like to read, I would like to say something about Bengali Dalit literature. I have gone through Manohar Biswas' work, then Kalyani Thakur's work, also Jatin Bala's short story review I have written. So I'm quite familiar with his writing, thematic expression, as well as the language. I have gone hurriedly through the textbook which is sent to me, but it is not the exact. I think I have to read it 2-3 times carefully. Then I'll come to the right conclusion or right understanding of the textbook. With the first reading, just now today afternoon I have completed, I have come to the conclusion. I would like to say that it is an autobiography, a document of Dalit refugees tragedy. It is a Dalit refugees tragedy. And it's a partition tragedy. The text represents caste and communal conflicts, clash, the Dalits' struggle for survival, a fight for human rights, and the human identity. That is my first observation after going through the textbook. The textbook also exposes the reality of partition, cruelties, and injustice committed on both the community, Hindu and Muslims. That is my one observation. Then another, it is that it is a saga of suffering caused by the forced migration. We know that migration is a tendency of human society. But when that is a forced migration, the one has to move from one place to another place. And they do not have the choice because motherland is not ready to accept them. And so-called host land, that is full of uncertainty. Here in the textbook, here in the autobiography, Jatinji has represented, it is a condition like an internal displacement, IDP condition. IDP condition. A Dalit from pre-independent India forced to move the another homeland, so-called homeland, India, that saga is represented. And it represents the eyewitness truth of injustice. Eyewitness, Jatin. Jatin sir at that time was a child and witnessed the injustice, death, hatred, and many other pains. It is The endless chain of pain goes without stopping. The textbook represents endless chain of pain. When one pain ends, another begins, another begins, another begins. So it is an endless chain of the pain. And the textbook represents the unrepairable, unregainable loss of human property, existence, and identity. The essence of the textbook, I put to the conclusion or observed, what is that? It is a strong desire of acceptance. Strong desire for acceptance in motherland as a fellow human being, not as a refugee, not as a low caste. This is my observation of the textbook. After observation, I would like to read the few part or the few quotation from the text that heart-piercing expression is presented in the textbook. I couldn't read Bangla, but when I read in English translation, I heartily congratulate Dr. Mandakini ji and my dear friend Jaydeep ji, because this is only possible. This is only possible. You have brought Jatin's tongue to the worldwide community wherever the English is learned, understood. So here, I would like to say a few things about the textbook. It contains 27 chapters. And the first chapter begins, it is like that, fire, 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 and have. See, the opening words, opening lines of the textbook is highly heart-piercing. That it is represented by the taking place, cruelty, communal riot, violence, large-scale set fire. So here, in the opening chapter, the author and his kith and kin's village was set on fire. They have to survive. They have to live, and that's why they have to, because it was caused by the rioters. It was the reaction of Bihari Muslim displaced. It was the reaction of Punjab Hindu Muslim riots. And then what happened? The people early were living happily, harmoniously. Hindu and Muslims and Dalits in a village, they become enemy. How they were living happily, that's one beautiful example. See, Jatin has written in the textbook, you have translated, and I quote it, Fatima Bibi, Fatima Amma's expression. See that, who breastfed when Jatin was a child, when Mama was no more, his Mama was no more. But when the rioter had poisoned the mind, at that time, and the confusion aroused in the minds and the people, what is told that I am reading, Fatima is telling, Chotakada, today feel obliged to refuse the pathy cooked by me. As we are Muslim, you are not aware that day you survived drinking my breast. Unquote. See, there was no confusion, doubts, or hatred at all. But there was something, partition evil, something rumor, and opportunists. They have created anarchy. And on account of that, when Fatima Amma was equivalent to mother, rather more than mother, after the death of Jatin Bala's mama, he could survive because of her. And that was the one thing. And we know that the partition novel we read, Khushwant Singh's, or other partition novels, we know that. And even recent thing happens in Russia, when the migration, forced migration is taking, it is always creating anarchy. This anarchy is represented in a realistic way by Jatin Bala and translated by the translator. It was a reaction of Punjab and Bangla's communal riots. And the, the people, the living on the border, they have to migrate, especially Jatin Balas. And I caught there was no any option for the survival. They have to move, and it was not easy. It was not easy for the all to move from one place to another place. I caught what happened to them. Many people died. Jatin has written, you have translated, and I'm reading. Many people died, unable to bear hardship on the way. Many young women were raped. Many men hacked to death by the rioter. Only a few people could reach India alive. Unquote. That is the cruel reality presented by the author. We know that whenever the forced migration takes place, children and women become the first victim. Killing, rapes, murder, cry, sigh, sorrow, wailing, that happens. Jatin has presented very realistic way, and everybody can feel that. Then the horrible and pitiable condition of women is also presented. And I caught it. A mother was lying in the roadside. A mother was lying by the roadside, covered by excreta. She pleaded pitifully, give me some water. I'm dying. My dear, I have no one to look after. Please save me. Unquote. It's a very, very tragic. Then there is also the another tragic incident, and that I caught here. A newborn to her breast, and the mama is telling them, save us. We are dying. It's a very horrible. And everybody can shake it. Everybody can shake it when they hear and see. So this was the condition, lively presented. But what happened? These forced immigrants were not of other caste. They were of a lower caste. So they were not wanted by others when they reached India. And they were welcomed thus. And I read it. Oh, you swamp. A swamp of bastard. You touch this. Your touch is polluting. We are living in the digital India now. Just now, Sivakami ma'am has told untouchability. As far as untouchability is that a Dalit voice should be or must be heard. So here what happened, untouchability at that time was the part of, it was a custom, I say, it was a custom to practice the untouchability. So here, they were welcomed thus. They were not welcomed by the villages, not even by the government, because they have the Manuvadi mindset. Jatin sir has presented this matter, and I caught it. Thousands of uprooted, homeless, innocent Dalit refugees. Thousands. Dalit refugees, all victims of dirty politics, clung to Sialda station to survive. But they were not welcomed. They were not accepted. They were ill-treated. They were treated like animals. Why? The thing was that they were all Namushudras or the Dalit community or the lower caste. So this is a very, very touchy and appealing step. The hatred is there. So but there was no option for them. They couldn't live in their homeland where they were born, or their kith and kins were there. They have to migrate. And when they come to India, in the refugee camp, it is also the horrible condition. The cash dole was not sufficient. NGO was not providing even food. So what was the condition of that? And I caught that. Hunger is the constant companion of the refugee. Unquote. Hunger. Nobody was there. But only the hungry stomachs were crying. And they have to survive. They have to survive. The another condition was that the people knew that those who had come, refugees, the refugees were of a low caste and Dalits. So how they deal? That I quote it and I read it. The local villager hated the refugee as the people belonged to low caste. Local people were not ready to accept them. We know that, as Dr. Ambedkar has said, Indian society is a caste divided community. It was 1,000 years back. Now, the change has come. But it is also like that old wine in new bottle. It is like old wine. Untouchability, physical untouchability has got, but nausea, hatred has taken the another shape. Many times it is told, Dalits have issue, Dalit issue. Actually, there is a no Dalits issue. There is a no Dalits issue. It is the issue of orthodox toward the Dalits. They do not want to accept because of Manuvadi administrative system. Manuvadi administrative system. Then it is also told, furthermore, it is written by Jatin ji, and I'm reading, if a shadow of a refugee woman fell upon the bodies of a Brahmin, it is told the caste during that time, the Brahmins, then they thought that it is a polluted. Many times in the textbook, Jatin ji has expressed that Brahmins were like that. But I would like to say the Orthodox have no caste. Orthodox have no caste. Whatever the revolution and change have come in the society, their caste is not very important. But here, Jatinji has highlighted like that. Then they have decided to get the basic thing, hunger strike. Hunger strike in freedom fighting time worked there very marvelously. But hunger strike of Dalit had never worked anywhere. And we have also seen during the freedom fighting time. Jatinji has also told the refugees have gone for the hunger strike to get the basic things. And how they have demanded their rights. I quote, 2 big pictures they have placed in Hari Guru Chand and Bhimrao Ambedkar. And what they have written, and I read it again, Bangla is our mother tongue. We shall not let go of it till our last breath. The land of Bangla is our motherland. Passed unto the death, unto death. That was not what, as I told, Gandhiji's past word. Yes, but Dalits, who cares for Dalits? And who cares for women? See that's a real condition. Still, especially the Dalit woman. So here this thing is highlighted. And then they have decided the other means is the text highlights. And then they have made the organization under the leadership of Joginder. Yes, Jogendranath Mandal. And they have demanded the human rights. The human rights are demanded like that. And I quote, long live the native people. Because earlier, Jatin's family was connected with the freedom fighting movement. They have contributed a lot. They were remained the activist and the participant of Congress party. But when the partition took place, freedom come. And freedom come for the other people, not for the Dalits, especially the refugee. So here, under the leadership of Jogendranath Mandal, they have started movement and they have demanded the rights. And I quote, long live native people, the uprooted people. Bangla is our mother tongue. Bengali culture is our native culture. We will not leave it, not even after death. We do not believe in caste and creed, unquote. So here, this was the thing, but it was not welcomed. It was not welcomed. by the people, by the authority. And then what happened? The police force comes, and then again the unwanted actions taken place. But this action has created great fire in the heart of Jatinji. So the autobiography begins with the fire set by the rioters and forced to move from homeland to other land. But here the fire is kindled. This fire is for justice, for the human right and human dignity, not as a Dalit. This is a very wonderful matter. They do not believe and they do not think that they are Dalits, they are the different community. Here, it is told that we are Bengali. Bangla is our tongue. So you cannot segregate us. You cannot segregate. We are the part of a Bangla culture. And for that, the fire again kindled. So that's the last line. Last line of the text is that fire, fire, fire. But that fire is in the heart of Jatinji for the justice, equality. And it is also told that we don't believe in a caste and creed. Caste and creed. We want and believe that India should be the great India without any discrimination, without any identity, but the identity of Indian identity. That is, I think, that I feel, and I could understand from the text, and I heartily congratulate both of you, Mandakini ji. Thank you very much for providing us the opportunity. Jaydeep ji, for providing us the very wonderful, good work to read, and work to read not for only us, rest of the world, where still the people are there and they have the soft core now for the refugee and other also. And another important matter that I would like to say, the book is dedicated to the refugee all over the world. That's a great thing. Jaydeep ji, thank you very much to allow me to express my words. Thank you, Rajkumar ji. Thank you, Sivakami ji. Thank you, madam. Thank you, ji.
Thank you, sir.
Great,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much. Thank you most importantly for reading out the very powerful passages from the text. This is a very powerfully translated book. A lot of passion, a lot of pain has gone into the process of bringing about this translation. And I'm very grateful that you chose to read some of the most powerful passages from the book. Thank you very much. Over the last 20 years, we have a very rich body of translations from Bangla Dalit writing into English. And even I remain grateful for translations like these, because though I'm Bengali, I'm not literate in the language. I do not know to read and write in Bangla. So even my access to my own supposed to be mother tongue is through English. So I remain very grateful for these wonderful translations. And we have a number of translators also today among our audience. And the way you presented the entire discourse and its relationship, to very contemporary issues today, to problems which are continuing and will likely continue for the span of years that we see ahead. It is very vital that these life narratives should come up and should be circulating in the consciousness of readers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
From MB Gaijan, sir, we move over to Professor Mrinmoy Pramanik, who is from Calcutta University. And Mrinmoy sir, it is over to you for your discussions on the book. Mrinmoy, are you here? Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Jaydeep, the Mandakini madam, and the organizer, Pushudara madam, for giving me this opportunity to talk about Jatin Bala's book, A Life Uprooted. And I especially feel very good. I'm so happy to see Sivakami ma'am, because when we introduce Dalit literature for our MA curriculum in the University of Calcutta, I introduced in the grip of change, and in last semester only I discuss her book, The Grip of Change, with my students, and in fact it was in our question paper also. So I really feel good, and it's been long that I'm meeting, though virtually, with Sivakami ma'am First time I met her in Hyderabad University. I thank Gaijan sir for his so beautiful discussion, and all the ground is actually prepared what I was thinking to share with you. Jatinda's book, Shekor Chera Jibon, is also included in our syllabus, and I teach his autobiography, Shekor Chera Jibon. And as mine is comparative literature department, it is comparative Indian language and literature. So our mode of instruction is both Bengali and English. And now I'm very happy that for my students, I can refer the English translation, Life Uprooted. Today morning, I just came back to Delhi and I was in Sahitya Akademi for library work, and I did not miss this opportunity to collect the book from Sahitya Akademi. And I already have started reading this translation, though I have read this book in Bangla. Uh, when I first came across with Jatinda's book, it was just 10 years ago, in 2013, when I was a PhD scholar in University of Hyderabad. My supervisor, late Professor Tutun Mukherjee, she took a grand project to translate Dalit literature from Eastern India. It was an Oxford University Press project, and Jaydeep also was part of it. But unfortunately, because of her sudden death and a few other issues, that project could not be successful. But in that project, I also had chance to translate few stories of Jatinda, and later with Jaydeep, Jaydeep published a translated book of collection of short stories by Jatin Bala, and I also had chance to contribute a translated story in that volume. And from that time, I started reading Jatin Bala's essays, novels, and short stories and poems in Bangla. And I started writing few articles in Bangla on Jatinda, and I got fascinated with his works. In 2013, Netaji Subhash Open University organized an international conference on partition literature, and there they published the post conference volume, and I wrote an essay on Jatinda's Shekor Chera Jibon as an alternative voice to read, to see Bengal partition, because the kind of narrative about Bengal partition we encountered with, it was mainly made by Chede Asha Gram by Dakshinaraঞ্জন Basu, and most of the narratives were very much upper caste dominated narratives. But when Jatinda's book came into discussion and people started talking about Shekor Chera Jibon, we came to know about alternative perspectives and voices of Bengal partition. And we very closely, we came to encounter the difference between camp life and the colony life. And one most important thing I must say here, I know that you all know about it, that the Bengali partition literature is, Bengali Dalit literature is mostly a result of Bengal partition and the liberation, Bangladesh liberation war, because of these two political phenomena, mostly the Namashudra community, who was the agricultural community, farming community, peasant community in Bangladesh, when they had to leave their land, they actually left behind their culture, their occupation, their cultivation land, everything. So the Namashudra community is one among the Dalit communities who suffered most because of this partition and Bangladesh liberation war. Therefore, the kind of Dalit literature we find in Bangla is mostly written by the Namashudra authors, though nowadays we find the literature is coming from different other communities, Ravidash community, Bauri community, and many other communities. But mostly our Dalit literature is dominated by the writings of Namashudra community. And I believe that Shekor Chera Jibon, A Life Uprooted by Jatin Bala, is kind of milestone memoir or autobiographical writing in the narrative, in the alternative narrative of partition. So I congratulate and I thank Mandakini Madam and Jaydeep for translating it into English. It is a huge contribution. It is a huge contribution, not because of translating a Dalit autobiography, but choosing Jatin Bala's work to translate into English. Because Jatinda's A Life Uprooted or Shekochera Jibon is like a monumental work, a milestone work to show us a new path to read the history of Bengal partition and liberation war. Though Jatinda born 2 years after Bengal partition, but from his childhood, he has observed the aftermath of partition. It actually carries the narrative of long history of partition, what Shekhar Bandyopadhyay often talks about, that long history of partition, which actually feels a long impression of partition even after the incident of partition. So that incident, that conflict, that certain kind of trauma, certain kind of uncertainty, certain kind of longing for desh, disha and bhasha, for the shelter, for the future of life, and for the language, because language is also very important part. The kind of vocabulary, the Bangal, the entire imagination of East Bengalis is made with is very important, because East Bengali is also an imagined community. My teacher, Professor Mandakini Bhattacherya, has a beautiful article on it, that how East Bengalis or Bangal is an imagined community, and how they fight to reconstruct their identity after partition and after liberation war, when they had to forcefully migrated to this part of Bengal. And I especially thank the translators, because they particularly have taken care of these Bangal words. They kept these Bangal words, they put glossary of Bangal words and this, because whenever I talked to Bengali Dalit authors, including Jatinda, because I had many sessions with Jatinda, I visited his home when he was in Bonga and when he came to Sonarpur. So I had long discussions several times in last 10 years with Jatinda, and I found these Bangal words or the vocabulary people use is how it is important for reconstructing their identity, and getting back to that nostalgia and all, that they are finding their nostalgia, going back to down the memory lane with the path of such kind of words they used to use in Bangladesh, in East Bengal, and here. So such kind of care what translators have taken in this book is very, very important. And this book truly, though I didn't get chance to read the entire translation, but today when I was coming back to Kolkata, and in afternoon also when I was just reading the pages of this book, I found that how faithfully, sincerely, with great responsibility, they have translated Shekochera Jibon. And I know it very well, because of being translator, having few experience of having a small experience of translating few books, and having a close reading experience of Jatinda's book as I teach it in my MA classroom. So I can imagine how difficult task it was, and how much skill they have put here, skillfully or craftfully they have translated the book, and how much responsibility they have carried, they have shown to represent the alternative voice. It is not only about representing the Bengali book to the English audience or the audience of India, but it is about representing a political context, a social context, a feeling, a trauma, a search, a longing for Desh, Disha and Bhasha of a community. The Dalit narratives or the tribal narratives, in many ways, these are like the testimony. Often we talk about Guatemalan authors, I. Rigoberta Menchú, and the entire idea of testimony, because this is not only though it is written by an individual, but it is not only a voice of an individual, but it is a voice of a community. Therefore, Dalit literature, especially the autobiography, because autobiography is most important genre for the Dalit communities or any other marginal communities per se. So they represent the community, and in Jatinda's book, the community is represented. The kind of experience Jatinda shared with us, with today's reader, is actually the experience of the Namoshudra community and few other people of upper caste communities and other Dalit communities. So it is very, very much a representative, alternative voice of partition history of Bengal. Such kind of works provoke us to revisit the history of partition and liberation war. And this book also fill a significant gap of our literary knowledge. This translation, I find this translation has immense significance. Why? Because whenever in different universities in India, professors offer courses on partition literature, mostly people talk about Punjab partition. There are two reasons I find. One is the literature of Bengal partition is translated very less into English. This is one reason. Second reason is the literature of Punjab partition has been written in many languages, in Hindi, in Punjabi, in Sindhi, in English. But the literature of Bengal partition is written only in Bengali or mostly in Bengali. So in case of Punjab partition, there are claims from various other linguistic communities also. So when this book has been translated into English, it serves two purposes. It enriches or it will enrich the syllabus of partition literature in the universities across the country, and it will also enrich the syllabus or curriculum of Dalit literature across the country, because this is an Dalit autobiography, and this is an authentic alternative voice of Bengal partition and Bangladesh liberation war. So with these words, I thank all the august guest audience present here for their patience, and I again congratulate Mandakini madam and Jaydeep da, and I thank Vasudhara madam for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much. We are very enlightened by your ideas. And as you very pertinently put forward, this was a much needed addition. And since you have been teaching the Bengali version, so you understand how valuable a gift it is for many of your students. And as I said, for many of us who have been unable to access these works except in English. And I have also had the privilege of reading your own translations in partition stories from both Bengals. You had a lovely translation there. And in Jatin Bala's book edited by Jaydeep Sir. So wonderful translations. Thank you so much for your perspectives. And from Mrinmoy Pramanik, we move over to Dr. Arindam Mridha, who is joining us from Rabindra Bharati University. And it is over to you, Dr. Arindam, for your insights on the book.
Thank you, Vasundhara. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Jaydeep, for giving me such an honor. Actually, when Jaydeep told me about this, to be very honest and frank, I'm the most least kind of, I haven't gone through the text, to be very precise. I have started reading the book, and from the introduction itself, it has started haunting me. I'll place two pictures side by side, where I find a little child getting lulled to sleep by the mother. The Maina is the dove's friend. She doesn't eat fried rice. She doesn't like unclean rice. She would fly off in a trice. Or say a sister and a brother perhaps experiencing the first rain and sun together, dancing, joyfully shouting, "It's sunny, it's raining, the fox and the dogs are married are getting." The magical touch, wake up touch of a grandmother on the dawn of Ashin Sankranti, the lush paddy fields, the peasants nurturing crops as their offsprings, the Gasi and the fire festivals during the winter season, the Novannu, the kite festivals, binding the entire community together as one spirit, the flora and fauna of rural East Bengal, the hawkers, the hearts, and then a Hindu child getting the breast milk of a Muslim mother. In stark contrast to that, we are getting another picture. The hapless Bolagor refugee camp, where you won't be finding any trees. The barrenness itself is reflecting the barrenness of a little hapless child who is forced into farm laboring, getting beaten up at every given chance. This is from Bala himself. Meanwhile, the Brahmin master came running and started kicking repeatedly on my waist, spine, and head. He uttered filthy words and to that. Now, what is the present situation? An upper caste man is transforming the fate of a lower caste man into a human. We will have to change this situation. These kind of books are very, very important. And thanks to Jaydeep and Mandakini for translating this particular book. Because and until this kind of people are coming up to translate books into English, people who are aspiring for their PhD kind of things won't be getting a chance. You'll be happy to know that I have opened a Dalit center, and Dalit literature is included in our syllabus. Thank you, Gosundara, for bringing up this particular issue. Thank you, Mandakini and Jaydeep, and my co-panelists, and especially Sivakami madam.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
Big thank you. Big
for
thank you.
promoting Dalit studies continuously in Bengal by your valuable teaching. And from Dr. Arindam Mridha, we move over to Dr. V.S. Ramakrishnan, who is joining us from Presidency College, Chennai. Ramakrishnan sir, it's over to you. Dr. Ramakrishnan, can you hear us? He's traveling and yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Evening. Yes, you are audible.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, especially Sarangi sir, as well as the Mandakini ma'am, for having invited me to express some of my thoughts on the translation. Even though I'm on the bus traveling right now, I don't want to miss my opportunity to express the thoughts I have had as soon as I read that book. First of all, I would like to congratulate the translators because never in the field of translating literary text in India can one come across a work like this. Because I think the translation works hand in hand with the original. The language is effective without exaggeration and arresting without affectation. The very first paragraph of this book reminds one of a poetry of highest order because it brings before our very eyes the concrete images of the atrocities committed against the Dalit community by using extraordinary images, expressions. To be frank with you, this book left me speechless. Its content would never fail to ennoble one with sincerity of thoughts and especially on the call for equality. The author, Jatin Bala, delineated in detail the aspirations of the Dalit community, whose very existence is abominable to many, unbearable to some, and almost unworthy to the rulers. All these aspects have been clearly presented by the author. Moreover, the author's growth from having been born in a period of great suffering and cruelty, that is the partition period, to his role as an activist against oppression of all sorts, has really been portrayed with great clarity and conscientiousness. That this work, in my humble opinion, is perfect without pedantic and progressive without provocation of any political ideology and inspiring without the echoes of instigation. Because whenever you try to voice your opinion on the atrocities committed against you, we may tend to express opinions which are not only controversial, which could also be considered as instigating. But you can't find any such thing in this extraordinary with the people who are refugees and at the same time Dalits. This work certainly throws open the hitherto unopened doors of understanding about the unsung and pathetic lives of our fellow human beings. Instead of going into detail about the entire book, few three important things that caught my attention immediately. Let me show you one example after the other. The first one, the refugee camp. See, the refugee camp is brilliantly described as a prison for the homeless. See, usually prison is intended for anyone who commits a crime, but a person who is homeless is also treated as a criminal. And the very place he is lodged into, that is the refugee camp, is compared to a prison by this writer. What a what an extraordinary imagery. And similarly, the resting of refugees on the verandas is compared to pumpkins on one of the pages of this excellent work. Actually, I am not only surprised, but at the same time, I feel so happy to see the relation between pumpkins and the type of violence that is committed against the Dalit community. Because pumpkins on any day are not going to remain intact. They are going to be carved up for different purposes or culinary reasons or for some specific religious rituals. The same keep happening to the Dalit community also. They are carved up everywhere. And the third one, the author's description of witnessing the death of his own mother as a child, okay, clinging to his grandmother, was simply of epic quality. I was reminded of a Sophoclean tragedy while going through that particular paragraph, and that page filled me with tears. So I would like to tell everyone that this book is definitely going to be a model one for every other writers who are willing to write about these subjects. And interestingly, the other panelists pointed out what I have on my mind, namely, the book starts with fire and ends with fire. The first fire is physical, that we need to extinguish, we need to put out. Where could see in the eyes of the hero is something that we need to feed, because it is a flame that promises, at least in the years to come, of equality, of justice, of comradeship and dignity. So definitely this work is a wonderful one. And when the next opportunity comes for our Board of Studies, I would like to recommend this book and add this book under the paper Dalit Studies. Even though it is could be categorized, this particular book could be categorized as a memoir, as a fictional autobiography, that could be brought under the title called Dalit Studies. I think that it has set the universe beyond the mere labeling. It teaches us the reasons for us to be kind with one another, accepting the fellow human being with dignity, and what all possible to do better things for them, to make the lives of the Dalits happy and meaningful. And this is that this book is in entirety is highly ennobling, with some kind of feeling, some sleepless nights to ponder over the sins he has committed knowingly or unknowingly against the oppressed community. And I hope that books like these should be continuously be patronized, continuously be supported, not only by the Sahitya Academy, but for everyone who wants India to be united, who wants India to be a role model for all others to follow. And I again would like to thank Professor Sarangi and Mandakini ma'am and all other panelists, and Dr. Sivakami ma'am, who happens to be hailing from my own state, Tamil Nadu, for having come over here for the release of this excellent work. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Big thank
very much,
you. Big
sir.
thank
Thank you very much for joining us, though you are traveling and it is obvious that there might not be space to accommodate our request. You have been very kind and generous. And thank you for your very generous words for the book. It indeed deserves a special place in the syllabus and in every desk and every library, I believe. Thank you very much. And since translation is entirely a labor of love, and it is also a kind of labor that enters into your own creative and academic practice and transforms you forever in many significant ways, I would like to call upon the translators to talk about the process of translation, the way in which, you know, they lived with the work all these years that they were translating it. And I will invite Mandakini to present her insights into the translation process and into whatever she experienced in the process. Over to you, Mandakini.
Vasudha, I would like Dr. Sarangi to speak first.
No, Dr. Sarangi would like you to speak first.
Yeah, you.
It is
You.
you that the process begins, and we would like to hear you out
Dear
first.
to me, and I would have really liked him to speak first. Jaydeep da apni bolun, তারপর
Hey,
বলছি।
you start and then I'll follow it up.
Oh,
And because I'll
okay,
continue. No problem. Yeah.
okay, sir. Okay, sir. So, a very good evening to everyone. I have no words to thank my extremely august audience. I have been getting goosebumps all evening ever since all of you have started joining in. Thank you, Dr. Mridha, Dr. Pramanik, Dr. Gaijan, Dr. Ramakrishnan, and of course, Sivakami ma'am, who is such an icon, and for joining and saying such nice words about this translation project. You have encouraged us so much. And Gaijan sir, your books are on my bedside all the time. Pristine Land, Dalit Literature, Tradition of Dalit Gujarati Literature. So these books are always with me as I'm working on the Gujarati Dalit literature too. So thank you, my friends, Ketan and his daughter, for joining in, Dr. Ketan Gedia, and scholars, professors, research scholars from all over the country. Thank you, Kalyani Thakur ma'am. Thank you, Kopil Krishna Thakur sir, for joining in. Jatin Babu is there all the time. His hand is always over our head, blessing us. And I'm so happy we could finally bring this work to fruition. This is an enormous opportunity, and the very first credit that I would like to give here is to Dr. Sarangi for for this whole fire thing. This was his idea, absolutely, that we start and end with fire. The book, of course, begins with fire, but this highlighting of the word fire in the very beginning and at the end was Jaydeep sir's brilliant idea, and that is what has come up again and again today. I'm so happy. So what are the problems of a translator? Now, translatio, the Latin word, trans means across, and laters means carrying over. So you carry over something, a meaning from one culture to another. And to this, I would join the word transnational. So translation to transnational. And that is what our aim was in translating this book, because as we have written in the preface too, we were moved to tears reading this work of art, as indeed most of you would also be. You have been so affected by reading this book. So what earlier Western traditions of translations, if you look at them, the prescriptive tradition insisted on equivalence. Then there was DTS, or descriptive translation studies, which insisted on describing what the translation actually is instead of what it should be. And how then there was a reaction against this in around 1984 by the Scopus theory, which said that it is not prescriptive or the tradition of equivalence that we must look for in translation. Rather, what we should look for in a translation is to carry over the meaning from one culture to another. And then this was further supported by the cultural turn of the 1990s, which of course said that instead of equivalence, we must look upon looking at how culture and external restraints work on a certain text, on translation. So what are these different kinds of translation? What should we have chosen? And we thought of choosing the post-colonial method of translation, because it is highlighting how the third world culture is to be translated into a foreign language, which is English, which is not understood by most of the third world countries. That was one method we wanted to look at. And the other method was the gender studies method of translation, where the gender of the translator matters, as well as the gender relations in the text also matters, which I have also commented upon in the introduction of the text of the translation. And the third thing is localization. This was another thing that we looked at, in which where should we look at skipping culture specific references and instead localize into the language that we were translating into. Should that be our aim? So these were various conditions, constraints that played in our minds, and of course we have tried to accommodate them. these are various Western concepts, but if you look at Indian concepts of translation, rather has always been spoken of as anuvad or bhashantar or tarzuma or rupantar. Now, all of these, as Professor P. Lal famously mentioned in his writer's workshop, they are all processes of transcreation and not simply translation. So that is what the Indian concept of translation looks at. The colonial process of translation in India especially insisted upon literal translation, because the first project of translation was, of course, the Bible, and you could not change the word of God. So there had to be equivalence. But as G.N. Devi has famously commented, that Hindu belief, on the contrary, is in the transmigration of the soul, and also in time as a circular motion and not as a linear progression. And so the metaphysical obsession with equivalence that is there in Western modes of translation does not worry Indians much. So rather, we are accommodating all these factors, and also the rasa theory of Indian translation, which says that we should, the text is, the rasas are divided into vibhav, anubhav, and vyabhichari bhavas, and that is they signify capturing the original spirit of a text. So this is what we also went after. And I was also thinking of Ramanujan, A.K. Ramanujan, while we were translating this text. He also came to our mind, that he said that there should not only be translation of the text, but also the translation of the reader, quote unquote, meaning that the reader had to be made familiar with the source culture of the text, but without using too many footnotes, glosses, etc. So all these factors played in our mind, and of course there were times when there were repetitions in the text, which we sometimes left out, probably thinking that it would weigh down our readers too much. But then again, there was this constant back and forth between Sahitya Akademi, which guided us throughout this process. Thank you, all the editors at Sahitya Akademi, their reviewers, they did a wonderful job. And then we were somehow brought back into the court of equivalence, because they did not want certain passages to be left out merely because they were repetitive. So there had to be all those passages in the text. So we sort of put them back again, because we understood that they wanted the author to be represented as faithfully as possible. That was their sort of intent. So why this text was so important to Jaydeep sir and me was because I have spoken of, and I have thought about this also as the refugee versus exile question. We have been already talking about Dalits and refugees and the caste question. What came to my mind was Said's interpretation, Edward Said's interpretation, that there can be a common area between the refugee who has, remember, a legal status. A refugee has a legal status because he is escaping and he is recognized as a refugee. He is recognized, given certain political and residential rights. But the refugee does not often express, because he's too dominated by political and external conditions. From the refugee, Jatin Bala, who initially starts his flight in this fictional autobiography as a refugee child, he transforms into the exile. And who is the exile? Someone who puts his narrative, who puts his experience into narrative, and who, this is his protest against the existing or formally prevailing situations which he does not want to continue. So this is his protest. So this transformation of Jatin Babu from the refugee to the exile through the relentless pursuit of education that he took upon himself, even studying under the railway station lights, this is what fascinated us, this transformation, and that this self-educated exile refuses to let his narrative disappear and pens his thought with dogged and disturbing tenacity is what I have mentioned in a paper of mine written on Sri Bala too. So This is one thing, and that it is a fictional autobiography. There is from time to time he will be recounting certain facts, because as you are all aware, mobile phones were not available in those days. He did not have access to a recorder, so he could not have recorded these experiences as and when they happened to him. So he's remembering. So when the memory overpowers him, the present tense takes over. When he is recalling the near or distant past, then he is using the past tense. So there were frequent shiftings from present to past tense and back and forth of tenses in some of the chapters, which could be distressing to a translator. So how to overcome this was also a question. But again, I remained faithful, understanding. Both of us understood the intention of the author, why he was switching back and forth between tenses. And so we continued. Our loss is, of course, that we could not highlight the various dialects of the various districts of Bangladesh, which are so very dear to us. Some of us have our roots in Bangladesh still. So we could not keep these in the English, and there is the more polished language of the protest marches vis-a-vis the dialects of Bangladesh, which we had to keep all in English. So this is one more problem that was encountered by us, but it was definitely a joy bringing to audiences this extremely valid cultural, political, and social document. And I would like to end by saying that there is this book called Caste by the Pulitzer Prize winning author Isabel Wilkerson, in which she says that she equates the caste consciousness to the Stockholm syndrome. It is extremely delightful and important to us to have translated this text, because it is Sri Jatin Bala's Bildungsroman of a refugee child whose struggle for survival, education, dignity, and rehabilitation, all these sorely needed an English translation for deeper penetration and dissemination of its message of courage and determination and hope. And as numerous scholars and speakers have also highlighted here, it is extremely important that research scholars have access to such an important text. Thank you so much for listening so patiently and giving me this opportunity, to Vasudhara, to Jaydeepta and the Hearth Within. And this was so enjoyable and such a valuable exchange. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mandakini, for your very valuable words, for your insight into the process of translation, the dilemmas of a translator, and also how translation is a journey into the transformation of the self. Thank you very much. And before I invite Jaydeep sir, I would like to invite Rajkumar Hansa, who is here, to offer his comments on the book. Rajkumar Hansa, well-known writer from Punjab, and we are very grateful that he has chosen to be with us this evening. Sir, it's over to you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I am indebted to all of you for having such a wonderful evening. Thank you very much, Jatin Bala ji, and both the translators, Mandakini and Jaydeep. I'm thankful especially to Jaydeep, who remembered me and sent me the link. I must admit that I told him that I had got a mild cerebral stroke last month, 40 days ago, and I'm still recovering from that. I'm a student of history, but I have done histories of Dalit literature, especially Punjabi Dalit literature. I'm really touched by this story or autobiography of Jatin ji, because very few such works as refugees have come up. It's a wonderful recalling and narrating. I think Bengal and Punjab suffered the traumas and endless miseries, and I think Punjab more so because over a million people were butchered in that kind of, you see, mayhem. Uh, it's such a wonderful experience. Is a painful. People were stunned to silence who had suffered this, especially migration, forced migration. They had not imagined that they would have to leave. Even when it was decided, they were not very sure that it would happen. So people continued sticking to their places, but then a large scale killing and butchery had happened. Interestingly, you see, the so-called fundamentalism or Islamic fundamentalism had no roots both in Bengal and Punjab. In 1937 elections, Muslim League could not win more than one seat in both in Punjab as well as in Bengal. So both the regions had wonderful tradition of living together joyfully and sharing the cultures, the language, and long traditions. Uh, Indeed, I would love to. I was listening to. Uh, Sorry, I was listening to. I'm forgetting the guy, Gaijan, or wonderful. I think a recollection of the novel itself. Uh, I am only sharing the Punjabi experience of the similar kind. Only one autobiography by a Dalit writer has come up. It is Sroop Sialvi, who was a teacher who became a lecturer, and he belonged to Ravidasya community, and their family had migrated like Jatin's calling of the experience of, you see, killing of or the murder of their one of the women. Similarly, his aunt was butchered, you see, before their eyes as they were walking from now Pakistan to this kind side of Punjab. It is a beautifully woven traumatic stories, autobiographical narrative by Sroop Sialvi, which talked about and especially highlight the way they suffered while coming and settling down, so-called settling down in a village near Chandigarh. Uh, and they were driven off out of the house which the Muslims who had been evicted and they have been killed in the same, they were blood kind of, you see, marks on the, they had cleaned it off. And once they were, they had settled in, a new family came from the Pakistan side, upper caste, Jat, and they were driven off that even the Dalits did not have the right even of living on their own kind of, you see, roof. That was done by the British. I'm just passingly saying that British had Brahmanized the society to cruel ways, you see, from legal system to other ways. And especially in Punjab, they had passed an act called Punjab Land Alienation Act in 1900, which had disqualified all other communities, especially the Dalits, from owning the land, from purchasing the land, and even their houses were at the mercy of the dominant caste, that is present caste, the Jats. So they were driven off out of their temporary shelter, and they lived in the fields, uh, only surviving on whatever they could eat from the fields itself. So it is a very traumatic story of the forced migrants, especially of Dalits, how they, and he was a great member of BAMSEF, uh, who organized, you see, in Punjab, well, Kanshiram had organized that BAMSEF and then BSV and so on. It's a traumatic story what he recalls from the father. He was born only 2 or 3 years after the partition, but their parents, his parents were mending the shoes and living like that. So they suffered the casteist oppression which was there. Unfortunately, what an image of Punjab had been, that since Sikhism was there and there was caste was not very strong, untouchability was not there, it is a falsehood. I have worked as a historian through the centuries together, that how equally strong both caste and untouchability in Punjab had been. So that has been beautifully captured by Saroop Sialvi, who had been a wonderful story writer in Punjab. So without taking much time, I congratulate all the organizers, writer, and the translator. Wonderful translation that you have done. I would surely read it whenever I get hold on this book. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for sharing this lovely novel with us, and for talking about how experiences resonate across regions and how we need to bring them together when we are discussing such experiences. Thank you very much. And since Kalyani Thakur ma'am is also with us, I would request her also to say a few words before I move on to Professor Jaydeep Sarangi. Kalyani ma'am, would you please talk to us?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
কল্যাণীদি ভালো আছেন তো?
How
আছি
are you?
আমি আজ
How are you?
আসলে আমি না
Just
একটু আগে কলকাতায়
two,
ফিরেছি আর কি,
just
আমি
two
অনেক
sentences.
ছিলাম।
Just two sentences. Two sentences. No
একটু
problem.
বলুন ম্যাম,
I
একটু
understand.
বলুন।
Yeah. Two sentences.
Thank you, everyone. Actually, Jatinda worked hard, and his working was very interesting because he has so many experience which I don't know the refugee experience. I have no refugee experience, but he is he lived in a camp area. Then he after partition he came here, and he has experience of camp life. So I think the work was very interesting, and although I do not read the Bengali one, but I know his short stories somehow. I wish the book should very great work, and thank you, Jaydeep, thank you, Mandakini, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you. Thank you
Kallani
very
ji. Thank you
much
so
for
much.
talking to
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you so
আশীর্বাদ
much.
করবেন।
And for joining us and
Nischoi,
being with us
nischoi.
this evening.
Basuthara also, Basuthara.
And just one addition to Kalyanidhi, and there is the Kalyanidhi is the cyclonic Dalit woman writers from Bengal, and translation of her Dalinir Kobit in press. So I am one of the translators. Hope to be out within 2023. Looking forward to the publication of the book. Thank you, Kalyanidhi. Yeah. Over to Baki.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and no, over to me, because I'm just going to invite you here. So inviting Professor Jaydeep Sarangi to talk as a co-translator about the book, and to also formally welcome on behalf of the Hearth Within, formal belated welcome, because he refused to welcome everyone initially. So Jaydeep sir, I invite you to talk to everyone about the book, and also welcome them to the Hearth Within. Yes, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. You enriched us like anything. You know, this platform of 68, I counted, it was a pan-Indian platform. from Punjab to I saw Mizoram also, my name Malashami Jacob ma'am, and from Kashmir to Kerala, and a lot of them are activists. Working with marginal lives is always activism. All the panelists are our inspirations. We followed Rajkumar ji, and of course, Gaijan ji was a part of the first ever seminar, national seminar. Kullanidhi was also part of the first ever national seminar on Dalit. It was hosted at Indumati Shavagriho, Jadavpur University, organized by, of course, myself. And that very historical day. Before that, and media in Bengal did not use the term Dalit at all, as Kallanidhi knows. And immediately that made things, that changed things overnight. And some prominent newspapers started using the term. And I'm very happy that Kullanidhi, Gaijanji were present on that very historical day. And I'm not going into what led me and what were the things prior to that. In last 20 years or so, the translation of Bengali literature, Bengali Dalit writings into English are possible because of the scholars like Arindam Babu, Mandakini Madam, Bashudhara Madam, and of course Mrinmoy and many others. Kolkata is a powerful group of translators who have been translating into English and taking up Dalit writings not as simple translation projects, but getting involved into it. That's why I'm very happy. I am one of the witness of last 5 years of journey of translation on and around me in Dalit writings from Bengal for the world audience. First, I have very important and very enriching experience in working with all the writers of coming from different parts of India. Thank you, Sivakami ji, just to meet in also again in Sahitya Akademi. Kullanidhi was also there. And the very book that Pashudhara already mentioned, Grip of Change, that changed the lives of us. Rajkumarji, your contribution, long-standing contribution. Gaijanji, long-standing contribution to Gujarati Dalit Sahitya. Nirav Patel. How can I forget my great friend who died, Nirav Patel? Really remarkable works that he had done. What is important here is that first, my wholehearted, I'll say hello or wholehearted expression of joy, celebration, and everything. All my praises to Mandakini, who gave her heart out into the work, quote unquote, heart out into the work. Now we divided the task. The first part is translated by Mandakini, and when I saw the first part translation, and it was emotionally charged translation. Before that, remember, I had an experience with translating with a sociology professor, Angona Dotto, of translation with Angona, we all know, because many of us know. And, the translation of Amar Bhuvane Ami Beche Thaki, that means, surviving in my world, growing up Dalit in Bengal, published by David, of course, Sri Shammo, now also part of Sage publication. So working with a sociologist, turning out working with an emotionally charged translator, co-translator of a Dalit book. Matching with the standard that she set in the first part took me some time. And I have been translating into different books from Bangla to English. But no, this was another challenge for me, and I took an opportunity. Thank you. The book is such a wonderful book, and I'll say it can change lives. So and Mandakini gave her heart out. So if all the audience who are present here, please read the translation, and we will be supercharged, because it took some time from my part to match up Mandakini's spirit of involvement and giving in all blessing emotions, because it was about refugee camps, about terrible, terrible massacres of lives, inhumanity to the maximum. The lives described in the first and the middle part of the book are just, I mean, terrible. I think pan-Indian, when the book will travel immediately, I hope many scholars who are present here already offered the book to be in the syllabus. I think the book should be, because it is one of the books, along with Kallani, these, of course, autobiography, uh, along with Itibritya Chandal Juban by Monoranjan Bapari. I think the Bengali Ana is incomplete if we don't read these books. I always say the image of Uttam Kumar holding the fish and the Mishti is half Bengali truth. So unless we read these books, the definition of Bengali is incomplete. In this evening, I set up the tune like this, and we got brilliant, brilliant support from Limbaleji to all, from everyone from different parts of India, Dalit writers, activists, scholars, Dalit scholars, scholars who are dedicated and working with activism. Working with Indian perspectives and parameters is, you can become a great scholar by writing something very important. I always refer to, I had an opportunity to read the PhD dissertation of Mrinmoy Babu present here. I tell you, if you ever read Mrinmoy Babu's dissertation, PhD dissertation, I am an enriched man after reading that. Because Mrinmoy Babu's PhD dissertation, I claim it's a kind of, it took for some time to rethink, go, how movements are organized. He looked into how slogans and translation, in a Vietnam to Indian, all contexts. So I think we should read more of movement literature to understand, to imbibe the art of living. And no translation is definite. It is written in the preface. Whenever I translate, even in the book at myself and Genia Mitra, professor of English, head of the department, North Bengal University, we are in a process of translation of Kollanidhi's book. And in the preface, it is written, this translation is one of the possible translations to look at Kollanidhi's works. And there are all fuzzy grounds of transgression I am not going into. The translation is not definite by any claim we are making. But of course, it is emotionally charged translation, and all because of Mandakini. Okay. And it was an enlightening experience to work with the author. The main positive side is for the Bengali authors that we have been working at. We are living and we are meeting Kalyanidhi several times. Like Manohadda, myself, and Angana, possibly we met 50 times together at different places. And similarly, Mandakini and myself, Jatinda is our Jatinda. Several times in our college, in our streets, cafes, and we made it 10, we all did in our mathematics, limits, isn't it? Tends to something. That means it is tends to be original, not original as in the original language. Translation is tends to be original. So thank you, everyone. Thank you all your inputs in this evening. You made the evening very, very special. And please base all of us that we keep up the spirit of activism, and we create an environment of activism in scholarship. Scholarship without activism, for me, is only bookish scholarship.
Yeah.
someone, and that is what we want. I think we need a generation who will be very active in scholarship. We'll run to Kalyanidhi's house, we'll take interviews, we'll live with Kalyanidhi for 7 days and come out with a brilliant piece of writing. Don't write on secondary materials. Isn't it sad? We want to create activists like researchers. I hope all of us present here are resolute, our jaws are stiff. We won't let it go. We will try our best to make justice for our work. Thank you each and everyone for being part of India, for joining and enlightening us. It's a powerful
Thank you so much,
platform.
Jaydeep.
Thank you.
So
Bhattacherya.
inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Please,
Thank
please,
We all are
please.
now
That's
thumbs up,
brilliant.
Jaydeep.
Thank you for
Thank
such
you
a
Yeah,
beautiful and
That
enlightening
was brilliant.
Thank you, Jaydeep.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jaydeep sir,
Arindam.
for a
Thank you,
very
everybody.
impassioned address, also for talking about the terrain of Bangla Dalit literature and the steady involvement and contribution of so many people who are here today to it. So as we come to the end of a very, very productive session, I'm reminded of Judith Butler's words from Frames of War. So she says that specific lives cannot be apprehended as endured or lost if they are not first apprehended as living. If certain lives do not qualify as lives or are from the start not conceivable as lives within certain epistemological frames, then these lives are never lived and never lost in the full sense. So when we are talking about Dalit refugee literature, we are talking about an intersection of lives like this. And Malashri Lal, in her endorsement for the book, says that a refugee child growing up in a tent, the struggle for a life of dignity that he undergoes is doubly hard when marked by Dalit identity. It is an adolescent's journey seeking education, dignity, and selfhood, all of which are denied because of the stigma of being lowborn. So this is the journey that Mandakini and Jaydeep sir have outlined in A Life Uprooted. And we hope that you will follow this journey by getting a copy of the book yourselves, and also by contributing to its rising literature in various ways. So thank you very much, and we look forward to reviews, we look forward to research articles, and we look forward to a proliferation of discourses in and around the book. So thank you very much for joining us this evening, and we look forward to being connected. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bashudhara, for moderating in such a
Thank
beautiful
you.
manner.
Wonderful job, Boshudhara. Thank you and good night, everyone. Good
More
night.
power to all of us. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Stay well. Stay